So one of the great temptations with Easter Saturday, I think, is to wish it away and to want to rush on to Easter Sunday, and where we get to eat chocolate for breakfast, and who's not looking forward to that? But there's a real value actually in pausing on Easter Saturday, obviously the day in between the crucifixion and the resurrection. And there's some of the language that I find really striking in the story of Jesus' crucifixion is the stuff around darkness. And so there's this bit in John's Gospel, John chapter 13, where Jesus is having the Last Supper with his disciples in the upper room, and Judas goes out to betray him. And there's just this little line that says, John chapter 13, verse 30, and it was night. It's this picture of suddenly the moment Judas leaves the room, darkness kind of begins to dominate. And you get a similar thing when Jesus is talking to them in the Garden of Gethsemane when the crowd come to arrest him. And he says in Luke chapter 22, verse 53, every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me, but this is your hour when darkness reigns. And of course, we were talking yesterday about how Jesus on the cross, what he's doing is he's taking our sin. The crown of thorns is a symbol of that, our sin on his head. He's taking on the separation of the Father that rightly belongs to us. And also what he does is ultimately he takes on death itself. And he enters into not just the darkness of, when the sun's gone, but the darkness of the grave, the darkness of the tomb, the sealed tomb. And in the song Praise the Name, which we've been singing a lot over the last little while, there's this verse that says, his body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. And Easter Saturday is just about us contemplating that line, Messiah still and all alone. There's this lifeless corpse in the tomb. One of the things that I think this says to us is that Jesus comes to identify with us in the darkness of our despair. And being a Christian does not make you immune from dark days. It doesn't make you immune from grey days. Let me read you this line. This is from a well-known Christian. She wrote this once. I am told God lives in me, and yet the reality of darkness and coldness and emptiness is so great that nothing touches my soul. Wow, that's bleak, right? Let me read it again. I am told that God lives in me, and yet the reality of darkness and coldness and emptiness is so great that nothing touches my soul. That was Mother Teresa writing that. And she had decades while she was busy serving other people where she felt that in her soul. That wasn't just for a minute, that was for a long time for her. She felt incredibly distanced from God. And I don't know about you, but there are times when everything is dark outside. And obviously we're in a very dark season in the world at the moment. But you can kind of get through it if you've got a little bit of hope internally. If you've got a bit of spark inside of you, you can make it through. But when it gets really difficult is when not only is it dark in our external circumstances, but internally it feels very bleak and internally it feels very dark. So let me read you another line. This is from a hymn that's been sung for hundreds of thousands of people for thousands of years. It says this, Psalm 88, verse 18. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. And with most of the Psalms, when it's pretty bleak, it sort of rallies towards the end. And they say, but I love you and I trust you and, it's going to be okay. But there's two Psalms, Psalm 39, Psalm 88, where it really just is bleak. And the final word of this Psalm is the word darkness in the Hebrew. It just ends with the word darkness. And so you think, well, what is that doing in the Bible? At what point are you going to be bringing that one out and singing that on a Sunday? But what that says to us is this is sometimes the experience of those people who follow God. And I find that actually incredibly releasing, that there are going to be times and there are going to be moments where we are going to feel dark, not just on the outside, but on the inside too, even as we follow Jesus and even as we are saved. And the picture of Jesus lying in the tomb, one of the things it says to me, at least, is that he comes to be with us, not just in the sunny lanes of Galilee, but on the sunless slab of the grave, in the mortuary, in death itself. That's how he identifies with us. And that might not make us feel better until we recognize the power that there is in being with another person in their despair. I am by nature a fixer, and so if somebody tells me a problem, I'll instantly try and come up with a solution to it so that they don't have to be in pain anymore. And it really annoys my wife when she just wants me to sit there and sympathize, and I'm starting to come up with a 10-point plan to resolve it. And I've realized in recent years, as Beth and I have been through challenges in our own lives, actually, there is such a power in somebody just being with you in the pain, not trying to give you a solution necessarily or a quick fix, but just understanding and getting where you're at. And one of the things that I find astonishing about the God that we follow is we can be in the midst of despair. We can have darkness outside of us and darkness inside of us. And he can say, I know what that's like. I know what that's like. I understand. I get it. Not in the way that God knows everything, but because he's experienced it firsthand. And so for us, on Easter Saturday, I think one thing I would encourage us for, if you feel in this place, and not everybody will, but if you are in this place where it feels dark, not just externally, but internally, don't pretend that is not real. Give yourself permission if you need permission to admit that it's hard and that you're struggling. It's okay to be honest. And when we are honest, often what happens is that is the beginning of this journey to healing. Now, obviously, we read in John's Gospel, John chapter 1, where it says, the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it. And we're looking forward to tomorrow and everything that we're going to celebrate tomorrow. And we also remember, even though it feels like we are utterly bereft sometimes, that we have a hope we can always be confident in, and that Jesus wins, that life wins, that light wins. And yet at the same time, one of the things I love about serving this God is that we don't have to pretend that it's not dark sometimes. And we can sit with him and welcome him into that place, because he wants to be there with us.